Your Excellency, President Felipe Calderon Hinojosa, Excellency Madam Margarita Zavala, Excellency Governor of the State of Guanajuato, Excellency the Mayor of the city, Excellencies, Ministers of Energy, Environment and Health, distinguished members of the High Table, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I wish to express our deep gratitude to Dr. Georgina Kessel, Secretary of Energy, and her able team and their leadership and cooperation in organizing this conference. Dr. Kessel's team and us, UNIDO, we've put this conference together very quickly. In less than a year and a half, this size of crowd with over 1,000 participants from 40 countries. It is to the credit of the government that we have this crowd because remember, at the same time, there are negotiations going on in Bangkok, but yet so many international people showed up here. We were confident that we could bring together some of the best experts, policymakers, private sector and civil society in this multi-stakeholder forum because of the friends and partners that we in UNIDO have built over the years around the issue of energy. I wish to recognize Dr. R.K. Pachauri, Nobel laureate and chair of the International Panel on Climate Change, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, who is also a goodwill ambassador of UNIDO. And he did not only come alone, he brought his team, his directors from TERI, to honor us with their knowledge. I recognize Mr. Jed Davis, chair of the Global Energy Assessment, and his team from the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis in Austria. I recognize the presence of our dear friend, Mr. Jorge Miguel Samek, Director General of Itaipu Binacional of Brazil. In fact, it was at the Renewable Energy Conference in Brazil about a year and a half ago, that the delegation of Mexico started discussing with us at UNIDO about the possibility of even a larger and more focused renewable energy forum, and that's why we're here, sir. I recognize in particular Mrs. Ellen Pelos, the new Director General of the International Renewable Energy Agency. I should say that this is her first major global forum since she was elected Director General just 2 months ago. Thank you for joining us. We recognize the members of the Secretary General of the United Nations Energy and Climate Change Advisory Group who are also here. Mr. Carlos Slim, Chairman of Grupo Carso of Mexico. Dr. Lina Srivastava, Executive Director of TERI in India, Dr. Suani Coelho, Executive Secretary of Senbio in Brazil, and Dr. Nakisanovic, Director of YASA and also Chair of the Global Energy Assessment. Mr. President, with these partners that I have listed, and those from the Mexican side that I am sure Dr. Kessel will mention, we were confident that we can put together for you the best minds around the world to look at the energy issue in a holistic sense. Energy and climate change, but also energy and development and growth. We feel we need to look at it holistically, to look at the applications of renewable energy, but also the investment possibilities. However, this conference could not have taken place were it not for your own dynamic leadership in the global stage, because I know that you have been a strong supporter of the Secretary General in pushing for urgent attention to the issue of climate change. We thank you for that, sir. Given this excellent mix of experts, I will avoid all the technical statements and skip most of my speech, which will be circulated. Allow me to focus on 5 key issues. First of all, number 1, let me just update you on the conference the Secretary General organized on the 22nd of September on climate change. It was a very successful conference. Over 100 heads of states and governments, all of the UN chief executives, and more importantly, over 100 chief executives of major companies around the world, all focused on the issue of climate change. Interestingly, out of the 24 roundtables we organized for heads of states, 6 of them were on energy systems. So your conference today is very relevant. We cannot solve the climate change issue without dealing with the issue of energy access and energy solutions. The key outcomes are the following of that conference. We need enhanced action to assist the most vulnerable and the poorest to adapt to the impacts of climate change. We need ambitious emissions reduction targets for industrialized countries, nationally appropriate mitigation actions by developing countries with the necessary support, significantly scaled up financial and technological resources, and finally, an equitable governance structure. These were key principles that heads of states and governments agreed to. The second issue I want to address is the issue of investment flows in renewable energy solutions. Investments in renewable sources of energy have soared more than 4-fold in the past 5 years, from around $35 billion in 2004 to about $155 billion in 2008, with a further $35 billion spent on big hydroelectric dams. However, due to the current economic crisis, we have seen almost a 40% decline just in 2009 alone in these investments. So key questions we must address in this forum. 1, how do we sustain the investment flows to renewables? 2, what kinds of public-private partnerships do we need to forge in order to support research and development to make renewable energy solutions commercially viable and secure a smooth transition to low-carbon economies or low-carbon technologies? To deal with all of this, it is obvious that we must tackle the issue of carbon price. We must price carbon. We must also factor in the externalities of other energy sources to make renewables more accessible and more commercially viable. The third issue I want to address is energy and climate justice. Energy and climate justice. Climate change continues to punish the poorest of the poor, the so-called bottom billion. It continues to ravage those who contributed the least to greenhouse gas emissions. This year alone, millions of people are at risk, from floods in India, China, Burkina Faso, to typhoons in Philippines, droughts in Kenya, to poor harvests in other parts of the world. The bottom billion continue to use fuel wood for basic energy needs. They are compelled to cut down the forests to ensure food security. So how do we ensure access to energy for development and growth? How do we ensure that these poor people who have contributed the least to climate change, that they have access to energy for their own development and growth? I am sure that Professor Guruswamy, Director of the Center for Energy and Environmental Security at University of Colorado, who is here, will elaborate on this issue of energy justice further. I have no doubt that Professor Vijay Moody from the Mechanical Engineering Department of the Columbia University's Art Institute will provide some possible alternatives, or our colleagues from the World Bank who are also joining us. Within this context, we must also genuinely discuss bioenergy. When we discuss bioenergy, let us not throw the baby out with the bathwater. We just saw an exhibition out here that jatropha, which does not compete with food, is a possibility. So in discussing bioenergy, I am sure that Gustavo Best from Mexico, Melinda Kimball from the UN Foundation in Washington, and our friends from Brazil have a lot to say about this. My fourth message is about greening industry. At the end of the day, with all our good intentions, alternative energy sources must pay off. Also, for any environmental convention, at the end of the day, it will come back down to the sector level. It will come back down to the private sector enterprises. It is in this respect that I want to again put on record our good cooperation in Mexico with the Minister of Environment and his team. We have been operating here in Mexico for over 20 years, particularly dealing with the issue of phasing out ozone-depleting substances. I stand proudly in front of you to say today that UNIDO is the lead agency in this country in dealing with phasing out ozone-depleting substances in the aerosol and refrigeration sector. We have also done a number of projects in phasing out the use of methyl bromide. In particular, yesterday, I was very pleased that the Minister of Environment and myself were in Guadalajara. We were visiting a company called Salos that is providing 70% of the metered dose inhalers for dealing with asthma and all the pulmonary diseases in this country. But what is important about our visit yesterday, which is related to climate change, is that the assistance we are providing was to build capacity in Mexico to provide that medication. The simple solution is buy it from somewhere else. But our intervention, which is at the enterprise level, is can we provide capacity within the country to manufacture their solutions and also create jobs and wealth. This is relevant for climate change. I saw the wonderful exhibitions. We know that Mexico will lead in the area of wind energy, probably reaching 2,500 megawatts soon, thanks to the leadership of the president. Question: will Mexico also be a major manufacturer of the components? That's what we see happening in Asia. You can have green solutions, but you need green jobs as well. Can the solutions also help countries grow? Can the solutions create wealth and opportunity in countries? It's not just selling technologies. And we are sure this conference will provide that opportunity. My last point, energy efficiency. It is obvious for you, the experts, that we can solve 40 to 50% of the emissions problems if governments are really serious about energy efficiency. I chair two committees or two groups for the Secretary General. One is the UN Energy Coordination Group, 20 agencies, including the World Bank. I've been chairing it 2 years. In June, we launched a new advisory group with CEOs from major energy companies. I chair that group as well as of June this year. We know energy efficiency is the low-hanging fruit, but nobody's picking that fruit fast enough. How do we ensure that we remove the barriers for adopting energy-efficient technologies or new technologies like CCS that are coming online? I am sure the other ministers from India and Poland who are here will be able to address this. I end again with energy justice. I come from Sierra Leone. I was born in Sierra Leone. Last year, 2008, it was ranked the poorest country in the world. Yet 2 days ago, the president launched the Human Development Report, and I checked, we have graduated 2 steps up. You ask the question, what is poverty reduction? Poverty reduction is not when you move a man from $1 a day to $2 a day. He is still poor. You're simply managing poverty. My country has moved 2 notches up. We're still poor. We have no electricity, no running water. But let me tell you something. Just 4 weeks ago, we confirmed that we have 2 billion barrels of petroleum. Yes, sir. The poorest country in the world now discovers 2 billion barrels, commercially viable petroleum and gas resources on what we call our Venus plot. It's just the first one. Question: will this just be pumped out and sold to the rest of the world? Do our people not have a right to access to electricity? Dr. Pachauri, I am sure, will tell you that energy access is the missing Millennium Development Goals. You cannot fight poverty without creating wealth. You can't create wealth without a cheap source of energy to power economies, nor can you achieve any of the MDGs without electricity. We're pleased to be here. We also have outside, we've arranged some tables through UNIDO support and the Ministry of Economy for partnerships, business partnerships, so please take advantage of it. Mr. President, distinguished guests, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.